Jupiter Broadcasting presents this show in mega stereo sound.
This episode of the Linux Action Show is brought to you by FreshBooks.com and by GoDaddy.com. Use our promo code Linux and save 10%.
This week on the Linux Action Show, Google rocks the action boat and claims using a Linux desktop is torture. It's like they're trying to make Bryan angry. Then Nokia has big plans for QT. And is Netflix coming to Linux? Plus so much more. All this week on the Linux Action Show! And welcome to Season 16, Episode 9 of the Linux Action Show. My name is Bryan. That guy over there is Chris.
Yo, hey there, Bryan.
That was me talking fast,
That
by
was
the way.
really fast.
That was the fastest I can possibly say that because I'm not very good at using my mouth.
It's because all that Dr. Pepper in your mouth.
It is, for you guys that don't know this, or aren't watching it live, it is 9 in the morning.
It's way too early.
9 in the damned morning.
I'm impressed that these many people showed up in the live chat room.
How many people are hanging with us this morning?
We've got, we've got 135 in the chat room, and we got 150-ish watching
150
live.
watching? What in the hell
That's
are you
early
guys
for you
doing?
guys.
Go to bed. The show comes out, you know. You can watch it later.
Hey, shut up. I want to tell you about my Run
all right,
real
tell me
quick.
about
It's
it.
really cool. It's a Raspberry PC. It's basically a $25 gumstick Linux computer.
Love this.
Yeah, it's really neat. It's essentially the size of a USB thumbstick. It runs a 700 megahertz ARM11 processor with 128 megs of RAM. Can even get an OpenGL ES 2.0 out of this thing, and 1080p video, which is pretty impressive. It's going to ship by default with Ubuntu.
Sure.
But really, any ARM-based distro
It'll
of
work
Linux.
just fine. The really cool thing about this is it's super tiny. It is shaped a lot like the Gumsticks boards.
Yeah.
But it's a lot cheaper than the Gumsticks boards and contains functionality built into it that normally you'd have to spend actually a couple $100 through like gumsticks.com or something like that to get the full thing. So this is cheaper.
This is
than
cheap.
hell.
$25.
Honestly, this would be
I don't know how it's
killer
possible.
to build little tiny devices out of. I mean, to use this
Like
as
a
the
Beowulf
basis.
cluster of these things.
A Beowulf cluster of these suckers
No.
would actually be fairly reasonable and
Yeah,
a
it would,
decent
right?
price.
It would, right? Yeah. I guess you could almost figure for the price of lunch.
You know who would want to do that because they're so cool? The amazing folks over at FreshBooks.
Oh, Bryan, you know, FreshBooks is a Linux running shop, and they are a new sponsor for the Linux Action Show. And we love it when you get a company that can sponsor on a Linux podcast that runs Linux themselves. But
Absolutely.
if you don't know what FreshBooks is, it's online invoicing. We both invoice, and invoicing is a bear.
A pain.
How much do you hate invoicing?
I hate
Seriously?
it.
It's the worst part of any kind of
It
invoicing
sucks.
type work.
It way sucks.
If you're a small business, if you're a contractor, whatever it is, go over to freshbooks.com and check out their slick, easy online invoicing. You upload your logo within a couple of steps. They have nice professional templates. You submit all of your information online. They can electronically bill the customer or send them a mail by snail mail if they're that kind of old school person.
Which half of them are.
But, you know, I'll tell you what, B-Man, the people that use FreshBooks on average get paid 14 days faster. And, of course, if you can get your client to do electronic payment, that's just even faster money in the bank. And it registers in the FreshBooks application
Yeah, that's nice.
that they've paid.
I really need to start using this myself because honestly, half of every client we build takes like 2 months to pay.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, this is great. Well, let's process this through the process server and then send it over to the process manager for approval of the process server process.
As
And
a
I'm
guy,
like, okay,
as a
thanks
guy
for
who
not
wants
paying.
to run like, you know, I want to run Linux on a PowerPC machine, or I want to run Linux on an
Yeah.
ARM netbook, or whatever. I want to reload distros. I love also just having it all in a nice, secure web app.
Yeah.
And they do a great job on their security, and the fact that it all runs on Enterprise Linux, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, makes me feel a little better. Plus, you know what?
That's pretty
Right
cool.
now, it's free for 3 clients or less.
Oh, really?
So if you've got 3 clients or less,
Oh, hell.
go sign up for a free account.
so it's free.
And when you tell them how'd you hear about us, put in the little phrase Linux, and they got a little box there. You put Linux in that little box, guess what? Entered into a drawing for a cake.
You know what I love?
You get a cake.
I love the fact that more and more websites are basically taking the word Linux and
Yeah.
making it mean Linux Action Show.
I know.
So
I know.
we basically own the word Linux on all these websites. You
Yeah.
go to GoDaddy.com, the word Linux basically means Linux
Look
Action
at the chat
Show.
room. Chat room loves the free cake. Yeah,
Free
I love
cake,
it. They're
dude.
giving away a free cake to everyone that uses Linux for every week this month.
Well, not everyone that uses Linux,
No,
right?
no,
it's
you get into a
one
drawing.
person, you get into a drawing.
Yeah, oh yeah, sorry,
Dude, but
yeah.
it's so cool.
That'd be a lot of cake.
Has anyone won that yet?
I don't know. I think it's actually
I
a little,
want a picture.
It's a little delayed, but I have started seeing some pictures come in. So I don't know if any of the Linux Action Show viewers have seen it, but I know a Jupiter Night viewer has, and I saw a picture of the cake, and it's incredible. They ship it in a box with dry ice and all kinds of stuff. I mean,
Seriously?
And it's delicious.
Seriously?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So anyways, thanks to
That's
FreshBooks
awesome.
for sponsoring the Linux Action Show. Hey, so I've got my Android pick this week, and you guys, I had to go this. I had to pick
You
Netflix.
had to. And honestly, this is like one of the first picks you've done that actually makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think Netflix is just sort of once you've got it on your platform, that's sort of a marker in the ground that this is an accomplishment.
It's a legitimate platform now.
Yeah, and so if you've got now of course the rub on this is it's only compatible on just a handful of Android phones.
Oh.
The Incredible, the Nexus 1, the Evo 4G, and the HTC G2, and of course the Samsung Nexus S.
That's okay. That's actually a pretty wide range.
It's
I mean,
okay.
That's
It's
going to cover a lot of people.
You know
out
what's
there.
not on that list? The Droid. All of the Moto Droids from Verizon.
Hey, what
the
about
Droid X?
What about like the Galaxy Tab?
Galaxy Tab's out? No,
Why would you not have Netflix playback on those tablets?
I know, man.
Because the tablets is where it's at. What about the Motorola Zoom?
Nope.
Dude, I mean, why would you have a Motorola Zoom and not have Netflix playback? They need to fix that like tomorrow.
Netflix claims that it's a DRM issue. That it's and then now this is just my loose understanding, but it's a DRM issue, and that they need the CPU in the phone to support it. However, rooted Android users are grabbing the APK for this thing because you can sideload on the Android. They're tweaking a few things in like some text files, and now they're able to run the app. So
yeah, but that's kind of sketch.
It's sketch. But if you've got one of those phones, and of course, I'm sure Netflix is going to get it out on more phones as much as possible.
As long as they keep rolling it out tomorrow. I mean, because honestly, it is
tab,
a little
though,
bit more difficult on Android because there's so many devices. It is hard to just test it all.
I guess so.
It is.
I would think you would start with the Zoom and maybe the Samsung
the
Galaxy
Zoom and the
Tab.
Galaxy Tab. It's good selling.
Yeah,
they've made a ton of those.
So that's kind of redonk. But
that is a little redonk.
You gotta go check it out. And also, a lot of you ask I hear from
Have
a
you
lot
been
of
using
you.
it?
I've used it a little bit.
Is
and
it played good?
It's actually not bad.
Nice.
Yeah, I've only watched children's movies on it, so I can't
Of
really
course you
comment
have.
on
That's what we watch now.
Yeah, I know, but those were all great, and it's great for the kid when you're on the go. So also, I put a link in the show notes to all of the previous picks if you just got yourself an Android phone and want to load up.
Delightful.
All right, B-Man.
All right, enough talking about Android. Let's talk about Linux right now. All right, so Linux desktop pick for the week is one that we've talked about in the past, but really just it deserves a shout out right now, is Webcam Studio for Linux. The official name is Webcam Studio for GNU/Linux. Not going to call it that. Going to call it Webcam Studio. At most, I'll call it Webcam Studio for Linux. It's a cool app. It basically takes the place of, a lot of the tools that are available under Windows or Mac for taking your webcams or multiple webcams, compositing them together how you like it, adding text overlays, animations, transition effects, sending it out to basically a Flash streaming server and allowing you to broadcast over Ustream or whatever.
So this would be a low-budge way to do what we do.
What we do.
You could really take a couple of different USB camera inputs.
Yes.
And they all resolve down to one camera input to the Flash app that you're using or whatever.
And it's a very cool app. It's Java-based, but it works incredibly well. It can't really handle, near as I can tell, any real like HD quality stream yet. But if you don't need a full like 720p or 1080p stream, the features that this has are great. I recommend checking out their website. They've got some videos up there that showcase some of the transition effects, and honestly, it has better effects than some of the commercial packages for Windows currently offer, so that's pretty rocking.
I love it. Yeah, dude, look, this guy's got a shot. If you're watching the video version,
burning
this guy,
fire.
he lit himself on fire with one of the effects.
That's cool.
Why wouldn't you want to live stream that?
Why wouldn't you want to do that? I mean, we don't necessarily do that all the time, but that's our failure is what that is.
I'll tell you what I do like is that it's also, it looks like, able to capture your desktop. So if you wanted to rebroadcast some of your own desktop.
It's able to capture your desktop, and not just that. It can capture your desktop within a masked region. So they have this little thing where they've got like a little speech bubble, and you can put your desktop inside the speech bubble while you have multiple other cameras going on other parts of the screen display. It's really great. They did a nice job with it. If you're working on webcams, if you're doing webcam-related stuff, or you want to put together a webcast type thing where you want to record it and basically do what we do with your webcam, this is a great way to get started. Highly recommended. Webcam Studio for Linux is awesome.
Webcam Studio, that's a great pick, and I'd love to see if you guys make something out there, post it online, send us a link so we can check it out.
Way
Really
rocking.
cool. And that's at it's kind of a odd URL though, so let's give it out. It's in the show notes as well, but it's ws4gl.org.
Webcam Studio for GNU Linux.org.
That's there you
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
All right, B-Man, let's do the news.
What's new in the news this week?
All right, Brian, buckle up. We've got a bunch of news this week. I mean, a massive truckload of news.
We've got news that makes me cranky this week.
Yeah, we're going to get on that. But let's start with a positive note, is it looks like Netflix is coming to Linux via a Chrome plugin.
Netflix plugin.
Yeah.
That works on Chrome also.
Yeah.
Yeah, it also works on Netflix, or it works on Netscape.
It works.
Or Firefox.
Whatever.
It's a Netscape plugin.
It's a plugin that's going to enable Netflix support in the Chrome browser, which should allow streaming under Linux.
That's beautiful. I love that. That's fantastic.
This has been such a... now, see, I've alleviated this with a BoxyBox and a TiVo for my Netflix streaming. But
that's what I've done. I've got all my video game consoles set up, and I'm ready to rock and roll. So I'm good to go that way.
What I don't understand here is what they say is this, and this is the thing that is getting me, is this is the VP of personalization technology at Netflix. He said, Netflix is pursuing HTML5 technology. The technology is delivered from Netflix servers every time you launch your applications. That means we constantly update, test, and improve the experience we offer.
Huh.
Our customers don't go through the manual process of installing any new software. This is how it works on the PlayStation 3, too.
Yeah.
The Netflix UI self-updates and changes itself a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
Or they were, whatever they were going through. And so, anyways, could be really interesting development.
That's really cool.
I wanted to start on that because the rest, we're gonna get through a period of the trenches. I thought we'd start on a positive note.
No, this is great. I love this. You know what? Netflix is awesome.
I know.
I love Netflix.
I would love to see Netflix, A, sponsor us, and B, get working on Linux.
I could get harsh on them for not supporting Linux out of the gate, but honestly, what they're doing is so big and so cool that, you know what? They keep adding a new platform like every 2 months, it seems. So
well,
I'm okay.
They are
with
awesome
it.
about getting all over different devices.
And it's great.
And a lot of those devices run Linux. But, also, it's just time to kill the cable monopolies. And I know that
and Netflix is doing that.
It seems like our best bet to just get away from that complete model.
Yeah.
Just get away from it.
Yeah.
So and then
so great.
And once you put it on IP, then sure, maybe today it doesn't work on Linux, but if it's that kind of technology, it could in the future.
Here we go.
Exactly.
We got it.
All right, now Google I/O was this last week, and now most of it doesn't really apply to the Linux Action Show, Brian.
No, because Google I/O is a conference about Google, and what does Google do? They sell advertising space.
Well,
that is all that Google does.
They have a couple of platforms, Brian.
Bull crap. They sell advertising space, and then they make additional software to trick people into selling their user and personal information to advertisers.
Well, but they got a couple of other things too, Brian. As he looks over his Google Docs.
I got my. All right, I'm ready.
All right, so here's the one that I think we'll touch on first. Is now let's start with.
Let's talk about the Chrome OS.
Let's talk about Chrome OS because that's Linux. That's a Linux machine, and so Chrome OS got a bit of a fanfare at Google I/O, and one of the things that I thought was interesting is was it Sergey, right? One of the Sergey Brin, the head dude now over there at Google, came out and said that. One of the reasons they're launching Chrome OS is because standard desktop operating systems, Windows implied, but standard desktop OSs are torturing users. Torturing, Brian.
All right, I want to make a request.
All right.
We need to separate this story out for a minute because in the headline alone, Google launches Chrome OS, says Windows is torturing users. There are two completely different topics that piss the hell off out of me.
All right.
Or piss me the hell off.
Yeah, I got you.
That's the right way to say
You're
it.
You're taking
right?
a piss.
I'm taking a piss.
Yeah.
The hell off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get into Chrome OS first.
Okay.
All right. So Chrome OS is launching. First of all, bring me up some really great screenshots
so here's
of Chrome
some
OS.
Great. Like, we went out and decided we'd find some great screenshots for Chrome OS, and I wanted to say thanks to Network World to putting the slideshow together because pretty much nobody else out there has.
No
something.
one has shots.
So
because
Chrome
Google
OS
apparently does not want people to know what Chrome OS is or looks like.
Coming from the top, Chrome OS is a combination of a hardware package and then their software on top of it. So like here's an example we're showing in the video version, a Samsung Chromebook. It's going to be a 12.1-inch screen. It's going to boot in about 10 seconds, 8 hours of battery life, has a webcam, 2 USB, SD, 3G built in, going to be $350. Or no, that 3G built in is $500. Okay, so there's the hardware.
And it's $430 for no 3G for the Wi-Fi version.
And it looks decent. And then also similar laptop by Acer will be $350.
But here's the thing.
Less battery.
Here's the thing about this. You have to go with the 3G models on this because the whole idea here is that every drop of your data is not yours. It belongs to Google, and it belongs in their cloud of servers. In fact, what that means is if you're out and about and you're like, oh, okay, I need to look something up real quick, and you're in your car, you open it up, start typing, whoops, zero data.
Well,
you cannot access your data.
They mentioned they're adding offline docs in Gmail, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. Like, how do you do that? So do you go into docs and then you load the web page and then
Basically, what they can do is they can use basically like equivalent of Google Gears.
Google Gears, but it's
And-
not Google Gears anymore.
It's not Google Gears anymore, but it's the same idea
Yeah.
where you have the application running locally, and there is in Gmail for a lot of the platforms there is a local storage component to
Right,
it.
right.
So basically, what they're saying is they're adding additional local.
So they're going to
storage
cache
it.
the doc in
Yes.
that local storage. So
Yes.
you'll have to go open the doc.
But here's the thing: you're still popping it open, going to a URL, and when you attempt to go to a URL, it does not exist,
Right.
and it's going to go explodey.
Right.
Your data is all up in a cloud, so you have to
Well, it's
chip in
just-
for the $500 model. Now, if you're going to get a $500 8-hour
That comes
netbook
with, by the
anyway,
way, that $500 model only comes with 100 megabytes of bandwidth a month, and then you can sign up for a plan.
Now, here's the thing. You can go out and get a EEE netbook that has more juice than this.
Yeah.
Run Chrome on it.
Yeah.
Get every feature this has, plus the ability to run local software. You can even make it so Chrome launches full screen
Yeah,
when it boots
yep,
in.
yep.
You would never know the difference.
No.
And you get way more functionality, literally exponentially more functionality for significantly less money. The only benefit for any person, not just layman's,
Right.
not just tech users, for any human being, is that this is a better platform for allowing Google to control you. That is the only benefit you get.
The trade-off is, right, the whole trade-off is that I guess you don't have to worry about updating your operating system anymore. That's one thing they really push heavily is, well, this is fully always up to date and secure. In fact, they even have a whole page and video dedicated to how it's always self-updating, self-secure. If you lose it, no big deal. You just pick up another one, you log in, all of your data syncs back down.
Are they that out of the loop? Do they really have no idea what a Linux desktop is like?
I know.
We're not running a server here. I mean, you can have a Linux desktop. You don't have to install Apache and SSH and everything else on it. In fact, you can make it so that there's no way to connect into it at all.
Right.
And then what happens if you don't update it? Chris, oh my gosh.
Nothing.
If you don't update it, everything's going to explode and you'll never have your
here's
documents
the
again.
thing.
And then the viruses will attack you.
Bryan, here's what I would say is now I guess
They just don't get it.
This
They have no clue.
this is
None.
part of my argument against Unity, all in general, is because the argument our chat room is making right now is this is the netbook for grandma and grandpa, and they just want this simple computer so they can get on that Facebook and see our family photos. But here's the thing. Why couldn't you just give, grandma and grandpa, that this whole scenario is dependent on grandma and grandpa going out and doing their own research, finding this Chrome OS netbook, purchasing it on their own, and then
Right.
setting it up.
Right.
That's not what's going to happen.
It's not going to happen. They're going to come to us
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah.
We're going to set it up anyway.
Yeah.
They're going to be like, how do I get, what's a Wi-Fi router?
So then why at
What's
that-
my password for my Wi-Fi router, Chris? And they're going to ask you that anyway.
Yeah.
It's the same questions.
Right.
It's the same tech support.
It doesn't make any
There
sense.
is no functional difference.
And why wouldn't you, if you want, and for example, and you like Bryan said, turn off the updates, or just go over there on the holidays and do the updates. You want to keep on top of that stuff anyways. Who knows? You don't know when they're going to be updating. You don't know if they're going to hit the OK button on the Chrome OS laptop any better either. Now, here's the other point, though, is it seems like to me that if you just wanted to replicate this cloud syncing functionality, so that if their computer died, you just hook them up with Dropbox or Ubuntu One.
And you're done.
Or I forget what the Mandriva one is. Always
it's
based
the
on
same
it. But
idea.
It's the same thing,
Yeah.
man. There's I put config files in my Dropbox like an SOB.
Me too.
I have cloud synchronization. I don't need
I have like
this.
half of the things in my home folder are automatically synced to my Dropbox.
The other issue I have with it is that I feel like we are, and I know this is, Google's perspective on this is, who really knows for sure there's always that possibility, this whole iPad and Zoom and Samsung Galaxy Tabs, these are just fads.
Sure.
And the netbook is really what's going to be the long-term player. So I think Google figures we got Android for the tablet, we got Chrome OS for the netbook, so we're in both races, whichever wins, we're good. But what I actually feel like it does is it actually just defocuses the community and the development community. Really, come on, these netbooks, 8 hours of battery life, they're gonna weigh. They weigh. They weigh twice the weight of a tablet. They get half the cool applications out there. This is just not gonna happen. People are not gonna do these stupid little netbooks. And I think that what we end up doing is we end up sitting here talking about what an awesome little Linux box it is and how it's cool that it supports HTML5 and all this kind of stuff and how it's based on WebKit. But the reality is it's just a big distraction, in my opinion.
It's a huge distraction.
And I think as we go forward,
Huge.
we cannot discount the fact that there's a difference between having your docs, like we'll have like show note docs in Google storage, versus having everything about you in there.
All right. I want to get back to that too, because that's actually part 3 of
All right.
what pisses me off right
Okay.
now. All right. Now let's come back to this though. So let's go on the theory, which they've purported,
Yeah.
that this is the easy-to-use Chrome OS book, right? This is the easy-use machine for grandma and grandpa.
Yep.
Well, then Sergey Brin, who
Yeah.
is a Google co-founder and the man right now.
Yeah,
You know,
he is
he's
the
the
man.
man. So he's the man over at Google. Now, he went on to talk at the Google I.O. conference about the fact that, well, for the most part, most Google employees don't use Windows. And
Yeah,
that's
about
fine.
he says that he thinks
About
it's what,
20%.
20% or
and
so.
the rest are on Macs or Linux. And that's great.
Yeah, that's cool.
Or not, depending on if you're Microsoft or not, I guess. But then he goes on. And now that Chrome OS is coming out, he's saying
Yeah.
that he hopes or thinks that the vast majority of quote-unquote Googlers or people that work at Google will be running Chrome OS to do all of their work on very, very shortly, by next year. So what he's really saying is that, and again, in order to be the vast majority of Googlers, you got to include web developers, system administrators, everybody, designers, marketing people. So what he's saying is people that need, let's say, Photoshop to do their work for marketing. Your job is not necessary.
It's
That
not
is not
gonna
necessary. You should just be using this web browser full time.
It's just not going to happen.
Or how about this? Web developers, all those awesome tools you utilize. You don't need any of them. You need a web browser, and that's all you need. You need nothing else. That shows a complete lack of understanding
Yeah.
of what a computer is. That
Yeah.
shows that not
well, he's a
only
smart guy. I mean, he's got...
bull crap. I don't care how many PhDs you have.
Yeah, okay.
If I come out on the Linux Action Show and say, hey, everybody, you know what you all need? The only thing you ever need is a
netbook.
Is a netbook running Firefox. Don't run any other application ever
Right.
because honestly, you need nothing else to do your job. That would show how I am retarded.
Yeah, you
That
would sound
show-
like if you sit here and we're trying to tell the audience, you guys don't need anything but a web browser. They'd write you and say, Brian, you are the stupid.
Come on, are you retarded?
Brian's stupid.
Sure,
Brian,
sure.
why?
I can use my web browser for my
Why
email
is
and
brain so broken?
some of my research
Yeah,
and a
of
lot of
course.
things.
Yeah,
lot
of
of
course.
things. But really, this is what you guys think a computer is? No. Here's the thing. I don't believe that for a second. I don't believe that you guys think this.
No, they don't.
You know what I think?
Huh.
You guys are lying. And when I say you guys, I mean the heads of Google that are coming out and
Just to sell a
pushing these
product?
things. They're lying through their teeth to sell a product. And it's not just to sell a product. It's to sell your own. It's to claim more power over our personal information
Right.
so they can in turn make money off of that information through either utilizing it to direct more advertisements down your
Right.
face,
Which we know that's
or
where they make their
selling
money.
it to other people. And this is absolutely beyond any measure unacceptable.
I have to agree with you because if you look at the security implications of storing your everything you do, and it's not just here's the difference: it's not just your data on these Chrome OS netbooks. It's everything about your location and where you're doing because we know that they track IPs. So if you are on 3G, they have that IP. So they know
Yep.
where you go based on cell phone triangulation. Then when you go home, you log in and you probably have, sure, your IP changes, but it's usually the same for a couple of days. So they have that IP. So there's a lot of different interesting metrics they can start pulling together based on what you're doing, where you're at, and all those kinds of things. And that goes right into what you're saying is the ad sales. And it also goes into just feeding this sort of information monster that needs to know more about us all the time.
Yep.
And it's like it's always
It sucks.
It's like they get something like back in the 80s it was we knew people in this area bought a lot of this type of software. That was their metric back then.
Yeah. In this zip code, they're buying a lot of this
And then as
software.
technology improved, we got like everybody got online, and now we knew, well, somebody from the Seattle area came to my website and bought something.
Right.
And then you could of course get their information, things like that. But now we're actually getting what are you doing, where are you at when you're doing it, and how often are you doing something like that I'll give you an example. for an experimentation for 3 months. I didn't tell anybody I was doing this because it sounds crazy, but I just decided
Sure.
to do it.
Lay it on me.
I ran full-time 24/7 Google Attitude, where you opt in and it tracks where you're at and what you're doing at all times. This is the same technology
That creeps me out,
It's the
man.
same technology that they pull together on the back end, and they can actually, based on when you logged into Gmail and what IP you're at and where your phone was at, they can actually bring those two things together. And they can also, that's one of the ways they can help determine if I'm at work or if I'm at home. And they actually give me a breakdown of what I'm doing at work, how much time I'm spending on the road, what shops are around me that I'm at, and then they can, of course, you can always tie that together with Google Checkout information. So there's a lot of information that they can correlate together, and this Chrome OS, and I guess to an extent Android, but really the Chromebook, because there's so many rich text types of things, so much. On an Android, it's like a text message. It's where you're at. But on a Chrome OS netbook, it's your photos, it's your documents.
It's the whole shebang.
It's so much richer of a context of information about you that can be, well, indexed.
Indexed. That's
But
the
you
whole
know,
thing.
but you know, traditional desktops, Brian, torturing their users.
Torturing their users. So, I hate to say this, guys, but I've got 2 more things I'm really pissed off about here.
Really?
So, for one, let's come back to the torturing their users concept.
Okay, all right.
I love my desktop.
Sure.
I've loved my desktop for 20 damned years.
Right.
Has it gotten better? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, heck yeah. You know what? You know what, though?
Could
you know
be
what?
better,
You know what,
though.
Google? Full screen web browser? Not better. Not torturing me less. In fact, I don't view, even going back in time,
No.
you know what?
Yeah.
I ran DOS 5 for a while.
Yeah.
I ran DOS 5.0 on a
Sure,
really
sure.
old
Back in
PC
the
back
day.
in like the late 80s
Yeah,
or something.
yeah.
Did that torture me? I guess maybe. You
No, it
could
didn't feel
term
like it at
that
the
way.
time,
It didn't
though.
feel like it at the time.
No.
Honestly, you know what I was with it? Productive and
Yeah.
having a good time
Yeah.
and playing my games and
Yeah.
running any software I want on native raw hardware.
Well, I think you and I have to acknowledge, and a lot of our
and
audience,
that was DOS 5.
all of our audience, really, I think we have to acknowledge that there are users out there where like something that's as simple as a tablet is the right computer for them. So it's not that it's not that there isn't a place for that computer-like functionality, but I don't like this trend from all of the industry leaders, and I'm talking all of them from obviously Apple, but Dell recently,
Yeah.
and Asus and Acer just had a massive exodus because one of their chief technology guys didn't think tablets was the direction. They wanted to refocus on tablets, so they kicked him out. I mean, a lot of the industry is saying the PC is dead, and it's like, I just feel like it's not that it's dead, it's that it no longer has to fill that need for the people that it wasn't appropriate for in the first place. It's not that it's not
Right.
appropriate, it's just that
It's really 2 separate things.
Yes.
It's, here's the thing. When the cell phone first came out and when smartphones first hit,
Yeah.
most of them were like Windows CE based
Yeah,
and things
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
And a lot of them were pretty crummy. But no one went around saying, you know what? I don't need a computer anymore.
Right.
I mean, no power users saying that. However, there were some people that maybe had a BlackBerry or a Windows mobile smartphone that was like, you know what, this does most of what I need.
does a lot,
But
yeah.
they're a different market. They're
Yeah.
a different kind
Yeah.
of person with a different need. That's what these tablets fill. And here's the thing. Google comes out and attacks the whole problem of computers being super hard for everybody
right.
by simply making it so you can do less. Not simplifying the tasks available, but making it so you can do less.
that's the easy route.
And so that everything that you do is controlled by them under all circumstances. Now, other players in this industry, Apple included, they don't control everything, while Apple is kind of a jerk about seeing what apps get into their iPad marketplace.
Oh, yeah,
They
okay.
still allow
I see what
you
you're
to
saying.
run native apps.
Right, where the difference with the Chrome OS ecosystem is that when you log in, it's Google Docs, it's
That's what
Google
you're,
everything.
That's what you're doing. Now look at the other side of things. Look at what Ubuntu's doing. Look at what the GNOME team's doing. They're coming out with a new UI that's taking the existing applications, the
Yeah.
existing power, and packaging them in a different way for you.
It's in its early stages, but they're not. Yeah, that's the
They're
direction.
not getting rid of functionality.
Right.
They're changing the way users interact with the same functionality. And
Right.
while I may not like that way of interacting with it, the power is still there.
Well, here's an example.
You can still load up your terminal. You're still not being tracked by Google.
Right.
You're still having LibreOffice or OpenOffice. You still have your documents on your machine that you can do whatever you want with, that you can email to someone you want, that if you lose internet access, you can still get your work done. They are going down the right path.
Right.
and Google is not. And they have the audacity to come out and say that standard desktops are torturing people.
Well, and here's where, if we're lucky,
ridiculous.
we have an opportunity where Linux can continue to refine these experiences without taking away the power. I mean, for example, taking away the power, Chrome OS, this latest version that's not even out yet, is just adding a file browser so you can browse to open local storage. Now, sure, it's all in the cloud. You just open it from the cloud, but come on.
Seriously?
You cannot tell me with 2 USB ports on these things, there's not going to be a scenario where you plug in a thumb drive and want to open something.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine the outrage if Windows 8 came out without a file browser?
It's ridiculous. So I'm
Seriously.
totally on board with what you're saying, B-Man. It's like Linux has an opportunity to do the refinement, to give us a more accessible, powerful tool. And wouldn't that position Linux perfectly for when things really are very, very cloud-focused?
Very.
It would position Linux to be that thin, easy-to-use, low-maintenance desktop OS. You slide right in there. I'm not talking it's next year. Maybe it's probably post-Windows 8 even. But I think as Linux continues to make these refinements and these applications online continue to get better, Chrome OS is Google's answer for a Google question. But I think Linux could be everyone else's answer for this overall question: how do I bridge that gap between local and cloud when it really is all in the cloud? And I think that Linux has the best answer out of every desktop platform out there. And I think Google kind of grasps it in that respect, but they aren't fully addressing the need.
So, with all that in mind,
All right.
and with the fact that Google has pissed me off for the 11 billionth time,
It's getting up there in the number, yeah.
and the fact that I am becoming less and less confident with my data being stored by Google. I mean, this current move of saying that essentially everyone at Google is going to be running just a web browser full time, and the fact that, come on, even here in the greater Seattle metropolitan area, I don't necessarily always have great internet access. Sometimes crap goes down.
Yeah, it can happen.
And I need to keep working. I'm moving off of Google entirely.
But you're a Gmail user.
Not for long.
But
So
you got
so
a
I've
lot
been
of stuff
working.
in the Gmail.
I've been moving it all out.
Really?
So
You're gonna
here's
do it, huh?
here's the thing. I've been working on for the last 4 days or so since this has been pissing me off more and more throughout the
stewing
week.
on it.
I started working on a custom server build using SUSE Studio, because why not? It makes it easy.
Nice.
To replicate all of the functionality that I use or want in both
Cool.
Google's online tools as well as Dropbox. So I'm looking to replicate everything, get myself off the cloud while still being in the cloud. It'll be Bryan's cloud.
Bryan Cloud.
Because
I like
Bryan
that.
Cloud is going to be running off of a nice little fiber connection at my home.
Have you decided like what to use for the different stuff, like for the Dropbox versus, have you
I've got
decided?
some of that. So what I was thinking is in next week's episode, we'll let people go grab it. We'll let people go grab my custom build off of SUSE
All right.
Gallery.
That'd be
Take
cool.
a look at all my tools. We'll go over how I set it all up.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about this is I could deploy that directly from there to Amazon's cloud,
Right.
to my own server up at Rackspace or wherever, or locally on my own machine. And here's the thing. I have full access to all of my data all the time. It's not... It's my data. It's not Google's data. I'm not going to send an email to my grandma and then all of a sudden Google's going to index it and say, great, here's
an ad for
here's an ad
flowers."
for coffins
Yeah.
or whatever. I'm just saying, I'm not okay with it. I'm just not okay with it. Because here's the thing. Here's why I'm not okay with it. Are you ready for this?
Lay it on me, P-Man.
It's not okay. This is purely not okay. It is obviously not okay for Google to do what they're doing.
What about, like, I know one of the common responses out there is, I selectively store stuff in the cloud.
Well, you are selectively saying, Google, here's selective my stuff. And
Right,
here's the thing.
right. That's what
I have been doing it. I'm using Google Docs to an extensive degree. Look at this, Chris. Here, I'm not going to show everyone. Google Docs.
Google Docs.
Google Docs.
Yeah, there's docs in
Tons
there.
and tons and tons of Google Docs.
Yeah.
And you know what? I use it because it is convenient. The reason we're using Gmail and Google Docs is because it obviously
convenient,
serves a need.
Uh-huh.
But you know what? If I can go to, let's say, myhome.lunduke.com or
Right,
something like
right.
that for your own particular thing.
And I do
and
like...
you get all that functionality, and I could still share everything out with friends, which, by the way, there's great open source packages that allow me to have collaborative tools with
Yep.
Chris here and the rest of the Jupiter Broadcasting crew, in some ways, way better than what Google offers.
What I do like
So why
about
not?
doing it through SUSE Studio, too, is you could actually really go, like, you could just download the VM image, or with a click of a button, you could deploy it to EC2. Like if you really wanted to put it up on the cloud for a bit, like for whatever need, you could. It's pretty neat.
Well, it's very neat, and it honestly just makes my life easier. We could, of course, build it on Arch or Debian or anything else and build it locally and create a distro out of it. That's fine. That's totally doable. But I'm just using SUSE Studio for this because it's just so brain dead and simple.
We should say when we were up at Linux Fest, James, who works with the OpenSUSE project, and he did a whole walkthrough of the OpenSUSE Studio and Gallery,
yes.
right?
Yeah, it's up on our YouTube channel.
It's up on the YouTube. So go to youtube.com/Jupiter Broadcasting for his video if you'd like to see more about that. Because really, that'd be a good video to watch before next week's episode. We go through some of that stuff.
Well, we'll go through this next week's episode. I'll show you the tools I'm utilizing. So if maybe you just already have a home Linux server and you want to add a few things to it, this will be a nice way. Or you can go ahead and grab my my little custom built server.
That was our second news story so far.
That's news story 2. I want to apologize to everybody. This super pisses me off. Because honestly, over the many years, there have been many companies that we've been upset about. And not when I say we, I don't just mean me and Chris here at the Linux Action Show. I mean like we as a community, we as Linux users, we as power users and developers on every platform. People look at Microsoft and are like, oh, antitrust violations. Yeah. We get mad. Yeah. We look at Apple and we're like, oh, you're locking too much into DRM, and we get mad.
Yeah.
Right now, this is the first time a company is laying claim to everything. Everything. Not just some of your music is DRM'd. Not just, oh, you're forced to have Internet Explorer installed, but you don't have to use it. Right. Which, honestly, I think is lame. But it's not Microsoft stealing every piece of your information. It's not you saying, here, Microsoft, and I should say, it's not stealing. We are granting Google the right to everything about us.
You're handing it over.
You're handing it over to them. You are signing the agreement saying, please, Google, please take everything about me and use this. I'm not okay with that anymore. It's time to change. It's time for us to make Google irrelevant. You know what? You want to make Google your search engine? Fine. Just don't log in and let them track you based on that and use every piece of your information in their services. That's all I'm saying.
Do you suppose there'll ever be a day where you can load Firefox on a Chrome OS netbook? You know, a little Firefox up on that, maybe a little Opera.
Honestly, I'm counting the days until there's a lawsuit against Google for not allowing us to install existing Linux applications on the Linux-powered Chrome OS book.
Right. Yeah.
I'm waiting for that day.
Do you want to jump over to the next news story?
Yes. All right. Let's talk about something else.
We'll shift gears. We've got a little QT news. Nokia announces QT5 plans, which I'll tell you, the first one on the list that made me excited because I loves me the ramifications. And it's always interesting, too, to see Nokia talk about QT since the whole Microsoft deal. But they say here that it's going to make better use of the GPU, which should allow for smoother animations in QT applications, which will be great. And they're also improving the creation of advanced application UIs and things like that. I guess they're going to probably roll out a new Qt Creator eventually with this as well. Yeah, well, they're beefing up the QML, their markup language for building UIs a little bit. It looks like a good upgrade to Qt, and what's really cool, they're going about Qt5 in a much more open way than they have in the past. Yes.
In the past, how it's worked is Trolltech or Nokia or whoever you want to call is working on it, works on Qt and then publishes it out into the source cloud. They say, here's version 4, and here it is, everyone here's the source for it, which is always amazing. It's amazing that they're giving away so much work to the open source community.
Yeah.
But this is the first version where they're literally making the development process open source
from the very start, and it's an intentional plan of theirs.
It's going to be open, and that's honestly pretty phenomenal because Qt is an amazing framework, and it's nice to see Nokia do it the right way.
It should be hitting beta around the end of 2011. One of the things I thought was interesting is on the Linux side of development, they're focusing on building in Wayland support.
Yep.
So obviously,
which shouldn't be too hard.
I just seems like. You got to figure, Ubuntu's been buddy-buddy with KDE recently. It just kind of feels like there's a lot of love going on between those two camps. Who's really pushing? I guess Fedora's also talking about Wayland, but I mean, really it seems to be Ubuntu's pushing Wayland. I don't know.
Yeah, it's great.
Cool to see that.
It's way cool.
Right?
I have nothing bad to say about this.
Okay, now the next story I am uber excited about, you guys.
Hey, Chris, did you see that?
What?
I had nothing bad to say about that. Yeah, there's no negativity there.
Nice, man.
Yeah, it was just nice.
All right, let's talk about Plex, because Plex is a slick media center. Actually, it's been traditionally for the Mac.
Yeah.
But it's coming out for Linux now, and it's nice. It's based on Xbox Media Center. So if you're an Xbox Media Center user, you know the basics.
You know what to expect. This is just kind of, honestly, this is just a really nice looking, well laid out one.
And one of the things they do really nice is they'll give you, and this is why I like Plex.
All right.
central library management.
What does that mean?
So, like, here in my house, I've got 2 boxy boxes, right?
Okay.
And they each go out and get all the metadata, they get all the cover art, and every now and then one identifies a show wrong. But the other one's got it fine, right?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So centralized means I just do it once and it's right, and then I just keep adding clients to it. And they've got
that's great.
They've got an iPad app where you get the full Plex like media library on there, and they're coming out with a Zoom app. Yeah, and they're coming out, and now so what I love about this though is so really what you would use this for is run Plex on like my 2 main TVs. But now they're coming out with the Linux client. I could just fire up the Linux client on from time to time, have it connect to that central database. I don't have to sit there and wait for the Linux client to scan everything.
That's cool.
So it's Plex, Plex. And check it out.
I'm glad they're coming out for Linux now. That's awesome.
Yeah, really, no doubt. All right, now, B-Man, this next story you dropped in here got me all kinds of excited because it's potential good news for us GNOME 3 users who are having a hard time making the transition from GNOME 2.
Oh, yeah. So, and this isn't really so much a big news story as if you are looking at GNOME 3 as the future of GNOME, of the future of your desktop, but you're just not happy with the way it operates. You want to change things up a bit. Here's the good news. GNOME 3 is very JavaScript heavy. The UI is very, very much JavaScript, which you could say, JavaScript. What's great about that is it's super easy to mod the hell out of.
Yeah.
So there have already been many people hard at work creating great modifications to the existing GNOME 3 UI.
Yeah, they're calling them extensions, right? That's kind of their official term for them, I think.
Exactly. So right here, you've got, here's basically 4 or 5 of them that I found the most useful from this one guy that put it together. Everything from putting together a nice applications menu. If you go up over to the click the applications button in the left-hand side, we ranted for a while about the way it lays out.
It's just so much more straightforward.
And here's the cool thing. It's not really the old traditional GNOME 2 menu. It's its own custom looking and working thing, but it works great.
Yep.
It works great and it looks great. Yep. Lots of stuff to move buttons,
move the clock around,
move the clock into a spot that you expect it to be in, and basically make it a little bit more like GNOME 2.
What I dig, these are GPL.
Yes.
These are GPL 2. And the if one of these was just insanely popular or added a lot of functionality,
just slide it right in.
Roll it right in.
Yeah, when distro can make it by default. So I've been running with all of these for the last couple of days and on a GNOME 3 setup.
So that's the way to go, huh?
And I got to be honest, GNOME 3 with those, plus a few other extensions, which maybe I'll pull together and blog about or something later on,
that seems pretty nice,
is actually a pretty nice desktop. I'm still not a huge fan of the GNOME 3 out of the box experience.
Yeah.
But with a little bit of tweaking, it's quite nice because it looks nice and they've done a nice job on it. So I just want to say kudos to the community for putting together some really great modifications there.
Good job, dudes. And if you guys out there have found any that have made GNOME 3 more awesome for you, be sure to leave us a comment so we can check them out. Now, okay. Warning. We're going to blow through some Ubuntu news here. And here's the thing, you guys. Sometimes some of you out there get a little butthurt when we talk too much about Ubuntu.
They get butthurt?
They get a little butthurt. I'm going to put it out there.
We're not trying to talk about Ubuntu here.
No,
we're really not.
Yeah,
Here's the thing. And we talked about this before the show, me and Chris, a little bit. But there is twice a year, things happen within the Ubuntu world. They do a big new release.
Yep.
They immediately have a developer summit. And then they immediately talk about what's happening on their next release.
And it's just a heavy period.
It's a heavy
Ubuntu
period of news. Yeah. And then there will be no Ubuntu news for a couple of months.
Yeah.
So bear with us. This is big news.
This one's an interesting one. So let's talk about some of the things that are happening at Canonical, the parents of Ubuntu. Their CTO is leaving, heading out, and we don't normally comment on these kinds of things, but Matt Zimmerman, good dude, was one of the founding members back in 2004.
He's been there the whole time.
Yeah, the whole time of Canonical. So he was the Ubuntu's chief technology officer for 7 years, and now he's heading out for greener pastures, I guess. So so long to Matt. An interesting development as well because, back in December, Mark stepped down as the day-to-day operations guy, and also, I think I want to say, I'm looking through to see if I can recall, there was another guy that left just sort of recently. Oh, Matt Astley in CEO or COO.
The chief operating officer.
Back in January. So a couple of recent 3 big major departures at the head of Canonical.
Well, it kind of makes sense. So right after a big launch, 11.04 from Ubuntu was a big launch. Unity was kind of a big thing. They really kind of were, it was kind of a death march for them. They worked long, hard hours to get it out. Honestly, I bet that's a good time for Matt Zimmerman to step down as the CTO. He's probably tired. He probably needs a break. And he waited until after it shipped, which was really nice.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't seen
any
news.
He's not out yet. He's got a few days still.
On who would be replacing him. I'm assuming they'll have that in place place before he's officially
That was
completely
the-
out the door.
That was the interesting thing, B-Man. Not only is there no news of who's replacing him, which is that's kind of an uncommon thing to do on a position of this type for a company that's public in a community like this, not to name your successor. It's not totally unheard of, but it's kind of uncommon.
Usually there's a successor.
The other thing I thought was interesting, this could just be nothing at all, but just kind of a funny takeaway the blog post was posted by Matt himself.
And it was short. It literally was over, and you can go read it. It's over on Canonical's corporate blog.
Yeah.
And there is a blog post there that's literally Matt logs in with his own user account and says, "Hey everybody, so it was nice. I'm leaving now."
Yeah.
And I read it, and it's really short. It gives no details about where he's going, who might replace him, how that transition will work, nothing like that. It's just like, later, everybody.
But I will say this, Matt, I'd love to know what you're up to next, so drop us a line.
I'd love to, because honestly, he's done great work.
Yeah,
I just thought that was funny.
We'll throw a link here to the blog post where you can see it was posted by Matt himself. Kind of fun, right? I guess, hey, when you're a hands-on guy, you're a hands-on guy. That's how it is.
That's how it works.
All right, let's blast through a couple of things that came out from the Ubuntu Developer Conference, which was taking place this last week, like we mentioned earlier. First, I thought was really interesting, Ubuntu Studio, interesting distribution, moving to XFCE, not switching to Unity or GNOME 3.
Nope. They decided XFCE would be a better desktop for them to cater to pro video and audio users than the other options.
And you know what? Honestly, I completely agree.
I agree.
When you're on a system like that, it's all about every ounce of power you get out of that machine. Why run more than you need to?
Yep, and you need to be able to multitask with multiple windows very intuitively in a way that makes sense for people. The current apps are built for that sort of paradigm in place. That's what they went with. It makes sense.
I could see maybe possibly that global menu thing being a potential nightmare with Hador or something like that. Who knows? Who
knows?
Interesting development. Also, just, it is something that is likely to happen with different elements of these distros that work off of
the various Ubuntus.
Yeah. All right, one more other little interesting bit that came out, a couple of interesting bits actually that came out at the old UDS is they set a goal. You ready for this, B-Man?
Yeah,
You ready for this?
Yeah, okay. Tell me about this goal.
200 million users in 4 years running Ubuntu. 200 million users. Now, we don't have exact estimates. Nobody really does, probably except for Canonical themselves. But they say people kind of in the know peg the Ubuntu usage around 12 million right now.
Yeah, somewhere like that.
So that's interesting. It's ambitious, but why not go for 1 billion? Why not go for 500 million? Hey, if they even add another 50 million, that's awesome.
I'm trying to figure out how much I can say right now. So here's the thing. So let's assume for a minute they're right. 12 million Ubuntu users. Now, not all of them are going to be running the latest and greatest, or the last two latest and greatest. A lot of them are probably going to be on the previous long-term support.
Unless they're planning to do some sort of massive rollouts with governments or something.
Let's say 10% of them are on 10.10 or 11.04.
Sure.
The last two releases.
Sure.
Does that seem reasonable?
Are you going Software Center on me?
Yeah. So let's say that then around 1 million people are actively running a version of Ubuntu with the Software Center, with a Software Center that has support for buying apps.
Yeah.
Now, I can't claim to know how other people's software is selling.
Okay.
However, I do know that my software, Illumination
Software Creator,
is in the Software Center. I know what my conversion ratios are from my own website.
Yeah.
And I know how well it's selling in, say, the Mac App Store and other places.
Right.
So I can kind of track that.
Yeah.
I can watch how it goes. I've also heard rumblings that it may or it may not be all that disparate from what other apps are doing within the Ubuntu Software Center. I can't claim that Fluendo's codec pack or anything like that. But from what I've gathered so far, it's not out of the ordinary from the developers I've talked to. That said, that means that literally like less than 0% essentially are running those versions of Ubuntu and actually buying software, which seems strange to me because it's a brand new thing. Even if most users reject the idea of buying commercial software, you'd think there would be enough that would be interested in this new thing that the sales would be higher than they were.
So you're saying potentially out of 12 million users, it could be somewhere less than a 0% conversion rate?
Like 0.01%, something like that.
And it would seem to me unlikely that the vast majority of the Ubuntu user base wouldn't be on at least 10.04.
Right.
And was it 10.10 or 10.04 when the Software Center was introduced?
10.04 when the Software Center,
Okay.
10.10 when it allowed purchasing.
Oh, okay, so they'd have to be on 10.10.
They'd have to be on 10.10 or 11.04.
Well, I could see I could see maybe not a ton of people are on that.
A lot of holdouts, perhaps. And
Yeah.
that's...
It could be, it's tough to say.
Now, again, my application, as people in the chat room pointing out, is not really general usage. It's more for building apps and that sort of thing. But then again, I also know what my conversion ratios are like.
Well, you're also in a better publicity spot than most people in that store.
Right.
I mean, even
if you go to here's the thing: if you go into the Ubuntu Software Center right now and look at the apps in it, I mean, it's not like I'm some huge company here, but I'm one of the more high-profile applications in that store.
If you were to take, if this was a Mac action show, that's funny. And then, could you just imagine?
I know.
That'd be ridiculous.
Really ridiculous.
And then, if
I think we should do that for April Fools next year.
That'd be painful, man. We'd
Yeah,
be
it
like
would.
biting ourselves.
That would be hard.
But if you took the Mac user share,
I'd wear a mock turtleneck.
if we had a
that.
proportional audience of the Mac market that we do of the Linux market, you'd have a fantastic placement in the App Store just based on.
Dude, if you had a proportional,
Yeah, yeah, you know what I'm
I'd be a
saying?
multimillionaire.
It's possible that so,
Again, this is so right now my slowest sales by a huge margin are from the Ubuntu Software Center. By a huge margin. I mean just way less than anything else. And yeah, I'm not saying that is a bad thing. It's a new market. It's still growing. It's still building. I mean, they don't really have categorized for it yet and everything else.
It could be the user base is
could be
just not an App Store user base.
But that they are a user base that buys apps. Over half of Illumination users are Linux users.
Well, and we know from the Indie Bundle, the humble Indie Bundle, that Linux users pay. And on average, they pay more.
Just don't like app stores.
Well, I know that I distro. One of the reasons why I would be potentially avoidant of software in the Ubuntu Software Center is I distro hop.
That's that's a thing that I think a lot of people are worried about. But I just think it's interesting that 12 million. I'm starting to wonder about the numbers that a lot of distros are putting out. Like Fedora puts out a lot of numbers.
Like
but
14 million, I think was the last number we got.
When you dive into the Fedora numbers, it also looks like, well, every time a new IP is used, they count it as a new user. And honestly, I get a new IP from DHCP every couple of weeks or a couple of days.
Yeah.
And so over the course of a year, my one machine that runs Fedora at home probably gets counted as 30 plus different users. So
Possible.
So for me, I'm looking at Fedora and I'm thinking, you know what? For most people, that number is going to be even higher because more people get a more common DHCP renewal of IPs than I do.
Yeah,
So
our FiOS is
therefore,
more,
at minimum, that number is inflated by 30 times over what I would think it would be.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
I'm looking at a lot of these numbers and I'm wondering how accurate they are. I think we can get a good gauge of percentage of Linux desktop market share compared to other versions.
Yeah.
But I think it's really hard to say in terms of total numbers at this point.
Right.
And I don't know how we're going to gauge that we're at 200 million because honestly I don't know how Ubuntu's gauging that they're at 12 million. I don't know that.
I don't even know if that's Ubuntu's number. I think that's somebody else's
That's just
number.
someone else came up with that.
So
Yeah.
that's one thing. That's one thing. They are shooting for 200 million users in 4 years, which boy, I'd be just
That'd be great.
I
love that, and honestly, I think Canonical's in a good position to make Ubuntu have that happen. I just look at that and I giggle. I'm like, I don't know about
There's some
that.
talk about taking a leadership position. People getting leaders in the Ubuntu community, adding accountability to the processes of building things around the Ubuntu releases. Maybe improving accountability during the development process of Unity and things like that. So
Contributor software agreements, all that stuff. And there's
I
a
like where
lot
he's
of good
going.
stuff.
I like where he's going. We'll put links. The Oh My God Ubuntu guys did a good, total good coverage of all of the Ubuntu IO stuff.
Yeah,
also,
they did great.
Something just a little
Not
bit.
Ubuntu IO, Ubuntu UDS,
Yeah,
the Ubuntu Developer
UDS.
Summit.
Sorry,
Yeah.
got my
Ubuntu IO.
Got my conferences mixed up.
Yeah.
One thing, just two features I know people in the chat room are excited about. Thunderbird is going to be the default mail client in 11.10.
Nice.
And also they're going to build in Deja Vu backup. I forget what it's called, but it's a revision file system backup solution.
Deja something.
One I was actually considering featuring here on last because I've tried it over the last few weeks.
It's a good backup tool.
And it's funny how that just is like, oh, cool, I've just been using that recently. So that's kind of neat.
No, yeah. 11.10 looks like a solid release. and it'll also have all sorts of stuff in
Yeah.
it. But I want to talk about this UI change.
Yeah, okay.
So in 11.10, they're adding in a new UI thing, and the only reason I bring this up, because it's a minor thing in a lot of ways, is because Ubuntu is kind of moving continually down the road of kind of its own custom UI style. So they're adding in what you could call sheets. So in Mac OS 10, they made a big deal about these sheets, which are essentially modal dialog boxes that are firmly
That's like
attached to a window.
The fold down?
Yeah,
Where
the-
they
the
fold
fold-
down.
yeah, they
and then
slide on
You
down.
can drag the window and the dialog box stays with
it. So they're adding that sort of thing to Ubuntu in 11.10, and it looks nice. It's not really a sheet. It's just more of a modal dialog where the window behind it grays out and the modal dialog becomes
attached to it, do you know? Oh, it is
to the
attached.
back window.
Okay.
That's what I understand anyway. Which honestly, I hate those dialog boxes under Mac OS 10.
Right.
But I know a lot of people like
They
them.
always end
I
up
don't know.
blocking exactly what I want to see.
That's what I always think. Because
And
I'm
you
like,
can't move them.
yeah, because I can't move the darn thing, so I end up having to cancel whatever it was I'm doing, figure out what I need to do, copy some text, then open it up again.
But in the context,
That happens
I
a
do
lot.
kind of see it working when you have global menus and stuff is a little harder to know exactly what's associated with what in
Yep.
global menus. So it is kind of nice to have it attached and implanted there. And you know,
It is nice. It is interesting. I just find it interesting because I think if they continue at this pace, with Unity being its own separate thing, they're kind of pushing into the dialogue sheets thing, which granted, it's been pointed out that GNOME 3 has something kind of similar, but Ubuntu is kind of having their own little version of it that I think, really, if you flash forward 3 or 4 releases past 11.10, you're really looking at a thing where Ubuntu is a very different looking beast than really any Linux desktop at all. Because with Unity and with the way that they're building everything and these sorts of new dialogues, I think it's really interesting seeing them diverge dramatically from the other Linux distros.
and you could end up having something that seems very polished.
You could, and it could be remarkable. I love it because you remember probably about a year ago at this point, during one of our episodes, I went on some random rant where I got all frothy
Not
in the
the
mouth
B-man.
and red in the face and all upset. But I don't think I was that upset. But, where every distro release, we'll review it, and they'll come out with their distro notes. And they'll be like, look what's new.
Yeah.
Slightly revved version of GNOME.
Boots faster.
Boots faster, and a new version of Firefox and OpenOffice.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that's
yeah.
what every distro said. And the only thing we could really talk about with the distros was they changed the wallpaper, they changed the window decorator, and a couple new versions. That was most of what was different between each individual distro. What's really cool here is by the time 11.10 ships this fall, we're going to have a new version of OpenSUSE coming along. We're going to have new Fedora already out. We're going to have some distros using KDE4. We got some Ubuntu's moving over to LXDE. We got GNOME 3 becoming the de facto for Fedora and OpenSUSE.
And I know you're not
everything's going to look different.
You're not as excited about it, but I'm excited. Mint 11, there was just a preview post about Mint 11, and they're just saying we're going with GNOME 2.34 for this release, and we're just going to make it the best GNOME release we've ever done. Is like this is our last GNOME 2 release, and we're just going to make it amazing.
That's
and
awesome.
And I'm like, you know what? These other ones might not be ready for me. I'm ready just to rock an amazing GNOME desktop for a little while. We got awesome
It'll be
distro
kinda nice,
releases
wouldn't
coming out. It's looking good. And I think, like you say, man, in a few years, we could have a completely different beast here with Ubuntu and Unity and all the polish they're doing there. I don't want to discount the OpenSUSE guys, though. We were talking at Linux Fest. We know they're going to look at integrating in their own types of open app store platform that's going to be more generally available for the whole web. Which they're going to have stuff coming on with the build service more and more with the gallery. They're going to integrate that tighter. So in a couple of years, they're going to be a totally different beast too.
So the Ubuntu Software Center-esque application, we can talk about that more in a future release. So I've been following that one a little bit.
Yeah.
Just as totally aside, it looks like that's not really going to be coming until fall or possibly later.
I know.
But it looks interesting, and we can talk about that more
as
it actually
we
gets
learn more. I think it's
closer
all
and is usable.
They're
right
all
now.
just like in like the technology planning stages and stuff.
But it's interesting that it's actually different. It's nice to see it's actually different because I think it was last year around this time we were looking at all the releases and the screenshots for every distro release looked the same with a different color.
We're like, what
one
are we
was
gonna
brown,
focus on?
one was blue, and one was green.
Yeah.
And really, I was just like, well, I like the green color better. And that was most of it. I mean,
This
other
one
than
has
slight
RPM,
revs.
this one has Yum, and this one has apt.
But that hadn't changed for like 10
yeah,
years.
yeah,
So
yeah.
this is cool. I love this. I don't know that I like this necessarily UI direction, but I like that they're taking a direction, and I like that they're doing something interesting. So that's way cool. I just wanted to throw that out there.
There you have it. I think that's all the news, right?
God, I hope so.
Whoa.
That's so much news.
All right, B-Man. Well, that's all the news for this week.
Okay.
Woo.
And that brings us to the end of this week's amazing broadcast. I want to thank everyone. Wait a minute. Before I thank everyone for tuning in, I want to thank my folks over at GoDaddy.com who bring us the amazing Danica Patrick. If you type in the word Linux at checkout, you get your own free Danica Patrick.
It's pretty great.
It's pretty great.
You should get 10% off. Actually, they just sent a deal over. If you want to just get a domain, use the code Linux, 10% off. But
sure.
If you want to get hosting and you want to get their deluxe hosting, you can get it at the price of economy if you use the code Linux Eco.
Linux ECO, all lowercase. So you type in Linux ECO, and if you're getting hosting, you sign up for the deluxe hosting package. You get it for the same price as the economy hosting
That's
package.
only until, we're recording this on the 15th. That's only good until May 31st, but Linux
So
ECO
just this
will
month.
get that for you. Yeah.
Just this month.
That's their new, they also rolled out, they call it their 4th generation hosting because they've just done a whole bunch of upgrades and stuff. It's a new fast system.
Oh, really?
And you get the cheap price for a year.
Oh, that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, so there you go. So
I was
Linux
actually needing
ECO.
to pick something up, so that kind of works for me.
There you have it. There you have it. So thanks to GoDaddy for sponsoring the show.
And just a disclaimer, you do not actually get your own Danica, but you can wish you did.
You can pretend like you did.
That's right.
Why don't we wrap up just looping back to a topic in the news segment where we're talking about distro stats and their usage. We don't really know much about Ubuntu. We just kind of have rough estimates, but the other guys like OpenSUSE have a nice prominent statistics page on there.
I love this page.
Right?
It is amazing. If you go to en.opensuse.org/statistics, you get some really great information. I mean, it's tracked down by country, specific download numbers from their websites.
Germany is their top country. Look at that. 26%.
Well, they are a German-based distro.
Yeah,
and it's really actually fairly amazing, like how detailed they get. You get it from essentially month to month. You get how many months after a release from a specific version. If you scroll up to the top there, which is way cool, I think.
Yeah, they break it down.
Yeah. So like the first month that say 11.3 is out, people downloaded 105,000 ISOs.
Pretty neat, huh?
And then it got up to 200,000 or that's the first week, second week, third week. So awesome. So what's cool is not only can you see how many total downloads there were, but you can see how many downloads in a single week.
I like that.
As it goes on. And what's really cool is you can see their older releases too. So even after their older releases have been out for a while and a new release is out, you can see how their older releases are still doing way cool. I think it's awesome.
And then they put totals at the bottom. Fedora guys also, they put out some stats. I think theirs is based on the Yum update and the IP there. And they'll track the total number of unique IPs and things like that. And then also the Canonical guys and Ubuntu guys, while they don't have something yet, if you go over to JupyterColony.com, Shane in there started an interesting thread that came up at the Ubuntu Developer Summit about turning on the Ubuntu ping by default.
Yeah.
If you look around in your settings, you can enable this option to send anonymous usage data to Canonical, which basically just is hey, I'm alive.
Right.
And they're talking about maybe turning that on by default so they can track this goal to 200 million users. And I don't know what you guys think about that, but there's a Jupyter Colony thread if you want to jump over there and throw in your opinion.
Yeah, I don't have it turned on by default because, I'm all, I don't want people tracking me, even though I know they're not tracking all my data.
I turn it on because there's also an option to send like anonymous package data, and I want them to know what apps I think are awesome. So I'm like, here's the apps I use. Make these work better.
Yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Now, is there any other business we want to take care of?
Oh, jeez, I hope not, because that's just so much stuff. So, of course, go over to twitter.com, Brian Lunduke and Chris LAS, facebook.com/Jupiter Broadcasting, JupyterColony.com, which is all super fancy, which is where you can find all that great information about that stuff that we just talked about. I think that's everything.
Wow, that was fast again.
Should be everything.
You came in on a fast note and you ended on a fast note. I mean, that was a lot of just rapid fire.
Dude, it's the Dr. Pepper, man.
Wow.
It's
who knew?
What's the slogan for Dr. Pepper?
Makes Brian talk fast.
It's the authentic blend of 23 flavors.
Oh, that is it.
Is that really the slogan?
That is it.
I was about to say it's the choice of a new generation, but that's like Diet Pepsi from the 80s or something like that.
Yeah, what's mine say? Mine doesn't even have a slogan.
Wow, they got rid of the Diet Pepsi slogan.
Yeah, that's weak.
Yeah, but just the same, the people at Dr. Pepper, if you would like us to create a slogan for you and say it repeatedly on the air, we can be purchased.
Just $1 million, that's all.
Just $1 million. It's no big deal. All right, so that's all we got. Yep. It's super fancy. Go forth, be fruitful, and multiply, and we'll see you next week.
All right, everyone. See you later. Bye, Chris.
What's new in the news this week?
All right, Brian.